I knew somewhere in the mountain range, the border between China and North Korea stood, and then our mission and the killing would begin. Though this happened 2 months ago, I still remember the eerie sensation that crawled over me then, as if my intuition knew of the horrors I would encounter that day. We had changed into camouflage suits before leaving the plane. The patches on the cloth, shades of black, green, and dark green, were designed to match the flora in the region. Without hesitation, Agent Hudson began to trample off in the woods, leaving the dirt trail behind. We didn't talk on the walk. He checked an electricity compass in his pocket, slimly adapted at reading the blizzard, constantly changing numbers on the screen. He would occasionally stop behind a tree, pull out the electrical compass, then slightly change paths again. Soon I saw a small clearing with a watchtower up ahead, pointing to my left and right from our vantage point high of the mountains. I saw more watchtowers peeking from the North Korea training. They went on as far as their eyes could see, spaced out in the thick forest, their stops rising above the trees like snakeheads rising out of a pit. "This is the crossing point," he whispered. "Be ready for anything." I nodded grimly, and we walked forward. I took out my binoculars, and I saw the shape of a man on the tower, on the very top. I was about to motion to Agent Hudson, but he had already seen it. He peered through his binoculars, frowning. "Should we cross if there's someone still there?" I asked. "I thought this was supposed to be the changing of the guard." He looked at me strangely. "Look again," he whispered. I took out my binoculars and really inspected the figure, though in the dying light of day it was hard to see out the details. But after 5 or 6 seconds, I had seen and realized enough. The man wearing the North Korea military uniform had been recruited against the Overwatch Tower. His eyes cut out, his skin peeled off. Someone must have skinned him alive and then put the uniform back on his mutilated body. We walked forward slowly, our HK 416 rifles raised. Soon we watched the watchtower and found no one around it. We walked slowly up the stairs, making as little sound as possible, expecting an ambush. I came to the top of the tower and found the man's corpse, with thick nails driven through his wrists and ankles. He was hung from the wall around the topmost room from the tower, his head drooping. I saw letters written behind him in Korean, thick lines of black paint. And I looked, and beneath a pale horse, his name that sat on him was Death, and Hell followed with him. "That's the book of Revelation," Agent Hudson started to say, when the corpse twisted violently and inhaled. The muscles on his skinned body stretched as it pulled against the nails, sending thick gushes of blood streaming down from the body, snapping its teeth. Its lipless mouth opened and closed with loud clank noises. It tried to lunge at me. Instinctively, I backed away, but the nails, driven deep into the thick wood, had kept the corpse attached. "Oh, God," I whispered, pulling out my pistol and pointing at the head of the wovened body. "No," Agent Hudson said, his voice fierce and commanding. "Don't fire any guns unless necessary. The sound could draw attention. It could draw the whole damn North Korea military. Just leave it there. We have a mission, after all." My head seemed to clear, and I put the pistol away. We walked back into the tower and started descending the stairs, the corpse still clashing and snapping its teeth at the air as we left. Our plan was to go straight to the biologicus weapon laboratory after moving through the Chinese-North Korean border, but our plans went quickly aware as dozens of North Korea soldiers ran by in their brownish-gray uniforms. They were coming out of the watchtower, and thankfully we were far higher up in the mountains than the soldiers, winding their way up the dirt road below. They had one car, and the rest tried to run next to it. The car billowed out of black smoke and gave the entire surrounding area a smell of burning and sulfur. All the soldiers I could see were extremely thin and scaly eyes and prominent cheekbones. They looked like they hadn't seen a good meal in years. And since this is North Korea, they probably hadn't. But they still were armed and far outnumbered us. We were supposed to use stealth to complete the mission, not raw force. The North Korea informant had given us the code to enter the biological weapon facility, and we would be entering at the slowest time of day, when the fewest staff members were present. We would still have to kill any guards we encountered. However, change of plans, Sergeant Hudson said, pointing to the deer tail that wound in the opposite direction of the approaching North Korea troops. "There's a small border town nearby where we can hide temporarily until the military clears off the road." "There's no way?" I asked. He shrugged. "Not that I know of," he said. "Our planned route follows that road. We could lay low for a couple of hours, then come back and check out the area. Try not to be seen by any civilians, though they're all spies for the imagery. These people turn in their own neighbors for an extra bowl of rice. Hell, half of them were eating snakes and rats and grass just to survive. They probably earn $1,000 a year at most. They would bring us right to the torture chamber if they caught sight of us." "Yeah, I figured," I said. "So are we just going to talk about what we saw back there?" Agent Hudson stopped suddenly, giving me a severe look. His blue eyes looked me up and down coldly. "Okay, then talk about it," he said. The statement caught me off guard. I didn't know how to respond to it. "Well, I mean, you have more importance than me. I was wondering what you thought," I said. The trees around us rustled in slight mountain breeze, the air smelling sweet and clean. I looked past Agent Hudson and could see for dozens of miles into the North Korea countryside quilt small villages dotted of the landscape with dirt roads sneaking their way through the thick trees. Far off in the distance, from the direction of the watchtower, we heard yelling, and from a different direction, dogs started barking. Ah, shit, Agent Hudson said. Let's pick up the pace. They have tracking dogs, I think. I don't know if they'll pick up our scent and follow us, or whether they'll catch the trail of whoever actually had a terrible crap, skinning the man alive and all that. But our trail is fresh, so I'm not liking our odds. He began to speed walk, pulling out the electrical compass and reading it as he went. From our view high up on the mountain, I could see a little town not far away. Agent Hudson did too. He quickly pocketed the electrical compass. Okay, I know where we are, he said. Don't need that anymore. So are you gonna answer my question? I asked. He walked fast beside me, breathing hard and slightly sheer of precipitation showing on his face. I don't have to answer for you, Jodo, he said calmly. Do you think I know everything strange and unusual we've encountered just because I've been at this job for a few years? But no, I don't know what's going on. I've never seen anything like that before. I hope, for both our sakes, that we never see it again. What do you think about what Al said? Do you think biological and chemical weapons? I said, do you think maybe they tested out some new agents and it got out? I think the most likely answer is that the man we saw wasn't actually dead. He might have looked dead when we first got there, but I've seen a lot more people who looked dead and weren't. Even being skinned alive, you can survive for a while. Maybe he was a super or a catastrophic statue from all the pain and shock he must have suffered. Maybe they gave the soldier some drugs or chemical agent so he wouldn't feel pain, but it's like we saw Lazarus rising from the grave. In my book, all we saw was a dying, crazed man nailed to a wall. He stopped speaking. The dogs sounded much closer now. We had almost made it to the village. It looked fairly empty, though I saw a feral-looking, extremely skinny cat skulking around a nearby residence.